What's up, working class Americans? Uh, just pumped out some more. Another day of 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. I mean, we're pumping it right now. The economy's blasting back up. It's going to be a V. It went down. It's going to go directly back up, provided these left-wing politicians will quit trying to hinder the economy by saying coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. We know that the coronavirus does not affect children. We also know that the coronavirus, for most healthy people, it's not going to kill you. That's what the numbers reflect, anyways. It's going to make you very sick, and from what I've seen, it's going to make you wish you were dead. But if you keep the folks who are either older, B, have underlying health condition, diabetes, heart conditions, things of that nature. If you keep them isolated, you can open the rest of the country back up. You can make sure this economy takes back off to where it was pre-coronavirus. Now, the left doesn't want that because obviously they want to keep it shut down because the economy booming going into the election gives Trump a huge edge. So they're trying their best to keep the economy shut down. It's like today, I got up. I was up by 3:30, running on fumes, but I did it. Did my 12s. Let's say I think I left the house this morning something like 4:30. I didn't get back home till 10. I went by and saw my mother. My mother has been staying pretty much isolated because of Corona, but she's in her 60s. It's better that way. We know that. We are preempting the coronavirus by keeping her isolated, and she chooses to stay isolated because at this point, it's a smart thing to do. If the rest of the country would look at it that way, we can't leave the country shut down. I know they want us to, but we can't. We've got to be able to make a living. We've got to be able to get our kids back to school, even though school is totally indoctrinating them with left-wing propaganda. They still need that social environment to grow, to build social construct and social relationships. And it's very important these days because of social media and the fact that they put more of their time into social media than actually learning how to interact with other people, which is part of the problem right now. But I digress from that. All I'm going to say is we've got to look at this thing smart and do it smart so that we can open the economy back up and get people making money again. Now, one thing I want to mention and talk about tonight is the McCloskeys up in St. Louis. They have been charged with felonies. This is total BS. They should never, and I want to repeat that again, never have been charged. They did nothing wrong. They lived in a gated community, a mob of very angry, violent people who have destroyed the city, burned places down, attacked people, busted through their gate, came right there onto their property. These people felt threatened and endangered. They grabbed their weapons, which they had a right to do, and they stood their ground, and the mob went on. That's a key point to this. They stood their ground, and the mob went on. No violence. Yeah, the mob wasn't happy because they couldn't just go in there and do what they wanted to. But then the politicians get involved. And what do? They attack the people who have never committed crimes, who have worked their entire life, who have helped support this country through taxes and everything else. These are the folks they attack. They take their weapons and now they've charged them with a crime. This is BS. It should not be allowed. I don't understand it. I think it's just the bureaucrats in that state and what they're willing to do, and how they're willing to get down on their knees for the mob. It's absolutely ass backwards. As Americans, we should not allow it. People haven't put together the whole picture, or else they don't want to put together the whole picture. This is not something new, okay? This happened in the 1960s. Matter of fact, in 1969, Berkeley, California, the same Marxist left-wing mob tried to take control of a park that was set to become a parking lot. Ronald Reagan sent the state police and then ended up sending the National Guard to put these leftist Marxists in their place. Now, what has happened is since the 60s, all of these idealists, all of these leftists, Marxists, communists, socialists have grown up. They became adults. They had kids. Well, they taught their kids these same left-wing principles of basically, if you want your way, you pitch a bitch. Whereas from a conservative standpoint, we're taught if you want to get somewhere in life, you have to work hard and get there. You can't expect someone to give it to you. We're also taught limited government, whereas these communist Marxists, they're wanting more government. They're wanting more government power. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. That is a very key phrase. These people have no morals. Not only do they have no morals, they have a huge hypocritical minds. They are way out in left field, and they think that they're in the right here. And like I say, this started back in the 60s. We fought these people before. We beat them before. We can do it, we can do it again. All we have to do is actually keep our minds clear, stay focused, keep our eye on the prize. Working class Americans, these people are our worst nightmare. And the reason they're our worst nightmare is because they're not going to contribute to society. They didn't contribute to society then. Most of them went on to become some sort of politician, or they finished their Ivy League education and became some sort of college professor, things of that nature, community leaders, things of that nature. And they have took the same left-wing indoctrination with them. Then they've indoctrinated their kids. So now their kids are growing up doing the same thing they did back in the 60s. We have to put this movement back down again. Whether it be socialism, whether it be Marxism, it does not matter. It's all one and the same. It all will destroy the country, eliminate the middle class, and take all the money from the working class people. Working class people already have it hard enough. We already have to pay a ton of taxes for a ton of social programs that we get taken advantage of. And the reason I say we get taken advantage of is because we all think about who you are, think about your family, because guess what? It's in every family. Think about your neighbors. Think about all the people around you who take advantage of these social programs that are as capable as you and I of getting up and going to work and paying for themselves in life. But they choose not to because either they're lazy or they don't have the conviction it takes to go work a job they hate, or to go work a job on a shift they hate to get to a job or a position that they want to be in. If you don't have that conviction, it's your own fault. It's not my fault. I should not have to support you. That's just the way it is. But these people are very violent. They've proven that. The violent crime rates have went up tremendously. And it's, look at the dozen or so kids that have been killed in these inner cities over the last 2 weeks. Toddlers, small children, teenagers, all of these kids have been murdered. And nobody's speaking out against it. You don't have Black Lives Matter. You don't have Al Sharpton. You don't have nobody else coming up speaking out for these kids that are dead. And they're dead from the left. They're not dead from the right. They're dead from the left. There's not, and if the media had it, trust me, they'd run it 24/7. I've said this before. If they had the evidence and they could prove it, they would run it 24/7. There is not a problem with conservatives committing violence in this country. There's just not. It's not there. They can't prove it. They don't have the evidence. But we have plenty of evidence of the violence coming from the left. All of these crimes are being committed by people who claim to be fighting for equality. There was great men and great women that have fought for equality already throughout history. These people today are not fighting for equality. They're not. They're lost on a sidetrack Marxist, left-wing, communist agenda. That's what they're fighting for, and they're too dumb to even know that that's what they're fighting for. When you get a group of people who are too dumb to even know what they're fighting for, that's dangerous. Basically, they don't know the history of the country. They have no idea how things really happen. They've been taught by their parents, and in a lot of cases, their professors, things like that. The same people who tried to pull this in the 60s. They've been taught by these people the same exact BS message that America is a hateful, bigoted country, and it's not. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. This country has done more for all people across the earth and across the country than any other country in history. It has done more good for the world than any other country in history. But you've got these, and I'll say it like it is, they're like Hitler's brown shirts. They're like the Democratic Southern KKK. They're like Cuba as far as Castro's people, the secret police. That's who these people resemble. They don't believe in open dialogue. They don't believe in having a conversation, going back and forth with ideas. They don't believe in that. They believe that if you do not believe what they believe, then you do not have the right to speak. They call it hate speech. It is not hate speech to have a different idea and a different opinion than someone else. But they're getting away with this. And they're getting away with it, one, because the Republican Party's full of cowards. And two, because we have all but erased the Democratic history of being nothing but hateful bigots. Even as, recently as 2010 at Robert Byrd's funeral. Robert Byrd was a Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. He was also a very prominent Democrat for 40 years? Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden all spoke at his funeral. All have pushed, or all was very close friends with this man. He was an open racist. Hillary Clinton said it was her role model. An open racist. Hillary Clinton's role model. They are intent on destroying the history of the country. Because if they destroy the history of the country, they can make people forget. They can rewrite it however they want to, which is what all of these all these lefty loonies that have taken over our institutions, our government, our colleges, even our elementary schools, all these Looney Tunes, they have actually indoctrinated our kids with this BS. And we've got to really take a look at our educational system. We need charter schools. We need charter schools so that so it's supply and demand. It's a free market economy like anything else. Right now, these schools are ruining our children. They're not teaching them what they need to learn and survive in life. They're teaching them ideology to try to change the country to what they look at as being better, a utopia of ideas, if you want to, regardless of the fact that it will destroy the working class American. They don't care about that. They don't care about the working class American. And these schools, if we create the charter schools and there is actually a place where you can actually call a school up, hey, how much are y'all charging this, for this semester? B, what's my child going to be learning? Is he going to be learning this leftist BS that the rest of the schools teach? Or is he going to actually be learning how to read, write, do arithmetic, cursive, history? History is a very important one. They quit teaching real history and they started just teaching propaganda. So history is a big one. But if these schools are out there and they're competing and you're getting what you pay for, right now the American working class, we're not getting what we pay for when it comes to schools. We're just not. They take in a shitload of money and they treat us like we don't have any say in how our kids are raised. I said this to one of my buddies earlier today. He was talking about his daughter basically jumping up and actually trying to attack his wife at one point, getting in his face. So he gave her a little pop. Hey, you gotta do that sometimes. You got to keep these kids in check. The problem with what's going on in the country right now is parents who didn't keep these kids in check. You have to lay down the law. You have to say, look, you don't behave that way. And if you are going to behave that way, there's going to be consequences. That's the only way to stop this. But I was talking to him, and he was telling me, hey, well, the cops came out. They looked at the situation, and they basically told her, hey, if you're going to disrespect your parents like that and do that, then you get popped. Hey, don't call us because we're not gonna help you on that one. Like I told him, be very careful because of the fact that same exact situation, they can go to the school and the school will get themselves involved, also involving DSS and everyone else to try to tell you how to discipline your child. You're not being abusive. You're not beating them. You're giving them a little reality check. That's it. It worked for hundreds of years, folks. And we're not talking about beating or abusing kids. We're talking about, sometimes you got to give them a little pop. Hell, sometimes, with toddlers even, you give them a little pop on the butt, a little pop on the leg, they're fine. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't harm them. But it snaps them back to reality. It says, hey, wait a minute. When I do that, I get a pop. I'm not doing that. We've gotten away from that in this country. We started rewarding everybody for whatever they do. It's like, oh, you learned how to use the toilet properly. Here, let me give you a reward. Oh, you learned how to, any little, and I could go through whatever, like 1,000 scenarios, but any little scenario where any child did anything, no matter how minute, and we're rewarding them like they're a Nobel Prize winner. We got to stop doing that. We have got to quit building these kids' egos up and letting them think that they're the smartest people on the planet. When the generation that just came along, they're dumb as dirt. They are dumb as dirt. I tell my daughter all the time, I love my daughter to death, but I tell her, you are not taking it upon yourself to try to educate yourself. You're not reading about history. You're not doing anything. You want to stay in the social media bubble listening to what everybody else says, and it's going to make you dumb. It's going to make you where you got a half knowledge of the world, and it's all going to be from other people's ideas, not from you exercising your own brain. So I tell her all the time, it will make you stupid. I'm not being an asshole. I'm telling the truth. We've got to start telling the truth to these kids. But I digress from that. I don't want to drag this thing out another hour, so I'm just going to get back to what I was saying. We fought these people before in the 60s. We beat them before. Now they're talking about coming out to the suburbs, attacking, coming out to the country, this, that, and the other. It's not a good idea, okay? You can do that shit in the inner cities because there's nobody who is armed except for the criminals. You come out to the suburbs, you come out to the country doing that, it's not going to work out. We're not as understanding as the McCloskeys. We're not going to allow you to come up on our property and threaten us in huge crowds like that. We will put you down. Let me say again, we will put you down. You come to our homes and try to pull that intimidation, Hitler brown shirt, KKK shit, we will put you down. Everybody needs to understand that you're dealing with a whole different breed out in the country than you are in the inner city. It's like I told a guy one time, a guy from New York, he came down here, me and him was good friends. We were young at the time. We went around, we got, you know, in bars, things in and out of bars, party and have a good time, you know. And the first time we get into a bar fight, I'm sitting here looking at the guy and he's trying to box everybody. And I end up having to jump in, help him out, obviously. And we're driving off that night. And I'm like, what the hell was you doing? What do you mean I was fighting? Well, you knocked this guy down. And then it was almost like you was going to help him up. What the hell was you doing? Oh, that's how we fight. Well, that ain't how we fight in the South. You hit the ground in the South, we kick the shit out of you. That's number one. Number two, we don't box. We do not box. We fight. We all out fight. And it's no different when it comes to weaponry and invading our homes. We know how to shoot. We're taught to shoot from the time we're old enough to hold a gun down here. And we're very good at it. And I'm not talking about we as in white people. I'm talking about we as in people all around this area of all colors and creeds. We're taught to fish. We're taught to hunt. We're taught to shoot. We do it. As a kid, as another thing, I can remember in this area, going down to the river. You'd have everybody at the river. Didn't matter who you were. Didn't matter what color you were. Didn't matter if you were straight, gay. Didn't matter your sexual orientation. None of that mattered. We'd all conjugate at the river. And it was very enjoyable for everyone. Yes, there was disagreements at times. Yes, people would get out there and fight it out, shake hands, drink a beer together, and go on. But you did not have the kind of violence that you have today because we were not afraid of getting our asses kicked. These kids today are afraid of getting their asses kicked. They think it takes more of a man to stand there and actually just shoot someone who can't defend themselves than to have a little friendly disagreement, a little friendly fight, have a couple drinks and call it a day, shake hands and walk away. It's the way we've raised the kids, okay? That's what it is. It's the way we have raised them. We have ourselves to blame in this instance because we quit teaching them that lesson of competition. It's okay to lose, but you have to do your best. And the way we fought down here, that was always the thing. A fight was a competition. You wanted to win. You gave it your best, but there was some you were going to lose. And when you lost, you had to suck that up. That was your, hey, fuck, I got my ass kicked. But kids don't believe that anymore because of the mindset that they have from being allowed to always be right and to never be challenged. Anyways, I'm going to get away from that. The fact that what I am saying is, when you bring that kind of violence, and it is violence, if you go on there and you actually look around at YouTube right now, if you look around, I don't have Facebook myself, but people around me do have Facebook, and they've been showing me all these different stories of people just being attacked. And what's crazy is we're in this time of wokeness where everything is about race and skin and hate crimes and this and that. But yet you have all of this evidence of actual hate crimes going on where people are really legitimately being attacked for the color of their skin, and nothing It's not on mainstream media. It's nowhere because it does not fit their narrative. Folks, we got to get away from this shit. When are people going to wake up and realize skin color is an attribute that you're born with? It does not define you as a person. And why we are making it define us as people is taking us backwards in life. It's the dumbest shit I have seen for an educated country to go that route. We're smarter than that. We are smarter than that. We know our history. We know what happened throughout history. And yet we're going straight backwards because we're being pushed that way by a socialist movement who keeps pointing out, but they don't point it out equally. That's the problem. They don't say, okay, well, we had a dozen kids killed this week. We need to look at that and see what the hell happened. No, they say we had one career criminal who was out here fighting the cops, got himself killed. We need to jump all over that. What kind of sense does that make? A dozen dead kids versus one career criminal who put themselves in that position. It's absolutely insane. What we are going through in this country right now is going to be looked back on at some point, whether it be 30 years from now, 50, 100 years from now. They are going to look back at this point the same exact way that we look back to 1860. The same exact way that we look back to 1920. Well, when they look back to 2020, depending on which side wins, obviously, they're either going to say, well, the country turned to socialism and communism at that point, and that's the reason here we are 30, 50 years later and everybody's in breadlines and nobody can find work. That's going to be one scenario. The other scenario is they're going to look back and they're going to say, man, we really messed it up at that time period. How can we prevent this from happening again? It happened in the 60s. We're dealing with it again. So obviously we didn't figure out how to prevent it. This time, when we beat this, we need to figure out how to prevent it from happening again. And I think it's going to come down to the political leaders. I think it's going to come down to not being a one-party system. I think it's also going to come down to the education system and the way we raise our children. We've got to get all those things in line. We have to get back to being a God-fearing people. We have to have something in life that we fear that gives us a moral compass so that we can actually raise our kids to have that same moral compass and that same fear in something and make them better people. You're not going to make little Peter a better person by never challenging his ideas, by always letting him believe he's right, by always patting him on the back for every little accomplishment he does, by always, here's a trophy, you participated, and by not teaching him that competition is good. You want to be a winner, but if you lose, it's okay too. But you don't get a trophy for losing. At the most, you get a beer after the fight's over. But I digress. Americans, wake up. Working class Americans, you especially have to wake up because they're going to keep squeezing every little red cent they can out of us until we have nothing left. They do not care about the working class Americans. At one time, every politician in this country would go from city to city, focused and targeting on working class Americans because they knew those were the people who came out and voted. The reason those were the people that came out and voted because those were the people paying the taxes. At one time, that's the way it was. Now, they go to all of the all the individual groups, and And these groups were set up for a reason, is to keep everybody at odds with each other. But they go to all the little special interest groups and try to convince them to vote, because they figured out working class Americans, we're working 70 hours a week. And yes, we are the largest voting bloc, but half of us don't vote. And the other half that do vote, they can go either way. You know, it's a pretty fair system. But what they figured out is the people who don't want to work, who don't have a desire to participate in our system, who don't have a desire to make a living for themselves, they figured out we can target these people. We can use social programs. We can use different things to control them and control their mindset and control their vote. And that's what they've done. Time to hit the bed. We'll talk again.